Good morning, and thank you for joining our webinar as we take a deeper look into the Dynamics GP, BC, and F&O solutions. My name is Kim Anselmo, and I will be kicking off our webinar this morning with just a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, I just want to let you know that you can minimize or maximize the webinar during the presentation by using the red, orange arrow buttons. And then during the webinar, we also encourage you to ask some questions. So you can go ahead and enter questions into the question box. Just to let you know, we have quite a bit of information to get through today. So if we do not get to answer your question, we will certainly reach out to you personally and make sure you get an answer for that. Also, just to ensure you have some good audio, you can take a look at your audio settings. If any time, you can switch between a phone call or also doing that through your computer audio as well. And so with that, I want to introduce today's presenter. We have Teresa Brown, who is our partner in consulting, and John Van Meter, who is our manager with technical consulting.
Hi guys, yes, this is John Van Meter here. So I've been working with the Microsoft Dynamics products for about 18 years, and real eager to share with you some of the upcoming and our most recent features that have been released as part of the Microsoft roadmap for some of these solutions. So thank you for joining. And Teresa?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, John. I'm Teresa Brown. I have been working with the Dynamics solutions for a number of years. In fact, we were just kind of joking about that a little while ago. But I'm excited to show you some of the new things that are coming out with Dynamics GP, some overview of Dynamics BC or Business Central, and then we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk to John about finance and operations. So a little bit about Armanino for those of you who aren't familiar. We are a full service CPA and consulting firm with members of our team in 22 different states. We have consistently been one of Microsoft's largest partners across the organization, an inner circle partner for a number of years. And we're here to help improve the lives of our clients, our people in our communities. And in doing so, we want to present you with some helpful information in making decisions about your ERP solution. So here we go. Today, we're going to start with an overview of the various ERP solutions that we're presenting to you today around Dynamics GP, D365 BC, and F&O. So just a quick overview. Dynamics GP, formerly known as Great Plains, is in a change in the lifecycle support policy, which we're going to talk about briefly today. We previously talked to you about this, I think, in September. And for those of you who attended that webinar, you learned a little bit about that. Today is intended to be a brief overview, but more of a deep dive into some of the enhancements. So we do have some continued enhancements in the GP solution. We also have a path to migrate you to BC if you choose to do so. Then Dynamics 365 for BC or Business Central, formerly known as NAV or Navision, a great solution for the SMB market and with cloud and on-premise options. And then we're going to talk about D365 or Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. And actually, there are some new namings conventions we'll talk to you about today. But that was formerly known as AX or Exapta, which is for medium to more enterprise size clients. All right, for those of you who are on Dynamics GP, we want to demystify the lifecycle policy. Previous to this presentation, we had GP solutions such as GP 2015, 2016, 2018. Each of those had mainstream support end dates roughly 5 years after the release of the solution. So for those who are on GP 2015, your mainstream support ended on April 14th of 2020, which was this year. For those of you who are on 2016, that support will end on July 13th of 2021. And for those who have migrated to 2018, the mainstream support will end on January 10th of 2023. So you can see here that depending on the solution that you're on today, you have extended life cycle on mainstream support as far out as January of 2023. But let's move to the next slide. And for those of you who are moved to 2019 and later, now we're just sort of numbering those by year. So starting in 2020, your upgrade releases will be once per year. Those releases will come out in October, in June, and in November or December. And that's for new features, tax updates, and year-end updates. And the requirement to be on the new lifecycle policy, which is more consistent with the Microsoft lifecycle policy, you'll need to stay on a current release once a year in order to be current. So this is just an example of what that would look like going forward. So certainly you can stay on GP, you'll have access to a new release each year. You can pick one of three, or if you desire, you can move into Business Central, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. So a little bit of some differentiation between GP, BC, and D365 for finance and operations. GP will continue with the perpetual license or hosting. For those who decide to move to BC or Business Central, it's roughly $70 per user per month. For the essential users, $100 per user per month for the premium. There's no minimum number of users, but there would be some add-on solutions should you need them. For D365 F&O, those are roughly $180 per user per month, and there is a minimum of 20 users to move to that solution. So there are quite a few differences here that we covered in our last webinar. I'll go ahead and show this slide here for just a moment, but some primary differences here are between GP and Business Central and F&O is for GP users, you're moving from a segmented chart of accounts to a dimensional chart of accounts. So therefore, no longer using a full string, you're moving to dimensions if you move to F&O and to Business Central. Moving along, we'll go ahead and skip this slide because we've got a lot of things to cover.
And sure, Teresa, this is Kim. I might ask you just to adjust your headset a little bit. I think it's starting to crackle.
I don't know what to do to make it any different.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Can you hear me?
We do hear you, yes.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to what's new in GP. If the static is very, very bad, I can certainly log out and log back in, but if we can just kind of bear through it, let's keep moving forward. You let me know, Kim.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. So what's new in Dynamics GP? Let's talk about some of the new features in GP. So some of the financial enhancements are listed here, and we'll actually take a look at a couple of these screens. Some things to call out here are there's some changes in the 1099s this year with the NECs. So that's now supported in the most current version of GP. We also have the import and export stock counts from Excel. We've got credit card transactions and some additional fields in general ledger transaction entry, which we'll show you a couple of those screens. And then some improvements in the HR and payroll and some system enhancements as well. So let's go ahead and skip to the next slide and take a look at some of these. This first visual is showing you the GL transaction entry screen, and you can see there in red that we've got two additional description fields for this entry. We've got June close reclassification for some bank covenants. So two additional description fields. Those have been added to the journal entry screen. Go ahead. Moving to the next slide, here you can see we've got the ability to import credit card transactions. That's very helpful if you need to record those transactions without having to key them in individually. Go ahead and move to the next slide. For this one, in the upper portion of the window, you see a paste button. This is the ability to import information into the payables transaction entry window directly from Excel. So similar to what you're doing in journal entries today, you can now import those kinds of entries into payables. So for very lengthy purchasing transactions, this will definitely be a time saver. Moving on to the stock count schedule, similar to the payables entry window, this will allow you to import your stock counts and export the information as well. So just a little bit of the enhancements there in GP. So as you can see, GP is not going away. There are continued improvements and enhancements. But let's say you did want to take a look at D365 BC or Business Central. Let's take a look at some of these features and functionality here. So the first screen here just gives you an overview of some of the modules and features that are available in Business Central. So financial management includes AR and AP, of course, bank rec, fixed assets, and month and year-end closing. We're going to drill into some of these details here in a moment. Sales and service management, including quotes all the way through to sales invoice processing. Project management, something that's sort of new to you if you are a GP user. So that includes capacity planning and budgeting and estimating on your projects. Under supply chain management, continued inventory, purchasing, and you would have the ability to add some manufacturing as well. Under operations, we've got forecasting, production planning, and MRP. And then some insights, which we're going to take a peek at some of those screens. You can see a quick visual on the right-hand side there, but we're going to dig into more details now. So as you can see here, there's an overview screen for users. This would be somebody who might be a collector, right? So they've got some invoices that are due that they can collect of $19,000. This gives you a really quick way to be able to drill into information that you can act on immediately. Moving to the next screen here, I might be an inventory analyst and I want to see what some of our best-selling items are. And we can see here that the Berlin guest chair has 30 items that have been sold. So this would be a very quick way for me to act on things. Maybe I want to buy some more of those. Moving to the next screen here, here's another overview screen. This really shows the favorites and sort of an overview. So on the left-hand side of the screen, I might be a financial analyst, and on the left-hand side of the screen, there are roughly 5 accounts that I want to view on a daily basis. Very easy for me to drag and drop new accounts into my favorite accounts view. That's very quick and easy. And that allows me to sort of drill in. So if you can see the accounts receivable balance of 44,000, I can just click right on that number and drill into the details. And on the right-hand side of the screen, I have a very immediate view of my trial balance, including my gross margin and operating margin. Moving on to the next screen here, we've got a view of our GL account settings. And over on the right-hand side of the screen, we can see that there are a number of fields that we can drag and drop into the views that we're seeing on a daily basis. And where that red line is, I can just insert any column into my views and save those as favorites as well. So customizing my GL account settings. And as it relates to the GL, as you can see in the GL account number column, 50100 is my direct cost number, 40200 is for a sales order. Each of my accounts is dimensional in nature. I can create dimensions for business units, for product lines, for customer types, and those are not required to be in a full account segment string as they are in GP today. Moving to the next screen, here's a view of, let's say, a sales leader. So you can see that our top customer was Trey Research. You can also see down towards the left-hand bottom portion of the screen, I have a visual of my sales pipeline. Each of the segments of the funnel show sort of a total view, and then I can just double click to drill into the details of those funnels at each level and dig into the details of what makes up each of those levels. So let's talk a little bit now about our integration with Office. One of the great features of using D365 BC is the very tight integration to Microsoft Office. In the case that we're looking at here, Steve Chapman has an email he sent to Dave. Hey, Dave, can you please order the following for me? I'd like 12 Berlin chairs, 12 Sydney chairs. Oh, and let's add 2 tables. So Steve's gotten an email. He's going to go ahead and now process that. Actually, Dave's gotten the email, and now he's going to process that. Let's move to the next screen. So here we go. Hey, Dave, let's go ahead and order these. And on the right-hand side, I'm still in Outlook. You can see that on the left. On the right-hand side of the screen, I've got a Business Central Insights pane that will pop up on the screen. It will automatically recognize for me who that customer might be. I can select the customer from the pane on the right. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And then from here, it will give me a high-level overview of what's going on with that customer. I can see their balance. I can see if they have any past due amounts. I can see all their aging. So I can select them, and I can move forward with going ahead and placing the order in D365 BC. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And now what's happened is the very tight integration to Outlook has gone out and shown me that it's tied the text in the Outlook email of Berlin chair, Sydney chair, and conference table. It's come up with an automatic link to items that BC thinks that it's trying to, or that the customer is trying to order. From here, I can just mark the check boxes on the left-hand side of the screen. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And then that will auto-populate, create the order in BC for my customer. Oh, and by the way, further integration with Microsoft Outlook. This allows me to click a button, send an order confirmation back to the customer. Hey, Trey Research, here is your order. And then if you look at the next page, it'll even complete the transaction by inserting, you saw 2 attachments on that email. It'll insert a copy of their order as an order confirmation that I can send back to the customer. So end to end, all I've really done is stayed inside Outlook to create this order from the customer, and I've sent them a confirmation. I can stay in Outlook the entire time. All right, let's talk about further integration to Office applications. In this case, we are looking at the tight integration with Excel. And my CFO has told me that he wants to make some changes in our payment terms with our customers. And if you look in the upper left or upper right-hand corner there, I can open a list of items in D365 BC. I can open them in Excel, or I can choose to open and edit in Excel. And this is pervasive throughout the application. There are other ways that we can use it besides customer data. In this case, I want to edit some payment terms. So go ahead and move to the next slide. And here in the upper left-hand corner, we can see in Excel, I've opened up that list of the clients that was shown in the previous screen, and we can see that the payment terms codes are 15 days, 14 days, 1 month, etc. And the CFO's told me I really want all of our clients updated to 15-day terms. So the user just copies and pastes the 15-day terms into the rest of the grid, and then import that back into, or process that change in D365 BC. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And that change is made. Now we're going to switch gears to something in the sales area. So switching gears here, we're talking about sales deferral. So one of the features in D365 BC is the ability to set up deferred revenue schedules. In this case, we are going to straight line the maintenance over a 1-year period for a particular customer. And this is set up at the item level. So I've set up a deferred maintenance schedule for this, and we're going to recognize of the $30,000, $2,500 per month in revenue. And each of these deferral schedules is set up differently. So there's different calculation methods and number of periods available. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And that allows us to go ahead and set up how much revenue is going to be recognized on a monthly or fiscal period. And over on the right-hand side of the screen, it's a little bit small, but we do have very easy to read and easy to hand off to our auditors deferral schedules, so we can see what's been booked, what's been recognized, and what is left to be recognized. And this is available not just in the sales area, but also in the purchasing area as well. So we've got the ability to amortize payables amounts as well in a very similar manner. Go ahead and move to the next slide. I think I'm going to wrap up the conversation about BC and talking about purchasing and some of the capabilities here, from workflow all the way through to fixed assets. So in this example here, Fabricam, we're going to place a purchase order. And as you can see in the drop-down on the left-hand side, some of the options that we have are we can buy an inventory item that would then feed to our inventory subledger. We can also choose to buy fixed asset items that'll feed to our fixed asset subledger as well. And there are other options here too. Move on to the next slide, please. So in this case, we're going to buy a new rack server. And as you can see, I've chosen fixed asset in the purchase order. This allows me to select a fixed asset classification and subclass, select the depreciation method if that's not already been established for me. This allows me to go ahead and say, okay, when I put these into my fixed asset subledger, how is that going to be recorded going forward? Move to the next slide. And again, talking through the integration with other devices, including Outlook, I've set up some invoice approval workflow. In this case, I'm showing a very generic approval where I've got a couple of different levels. And BC does come shipped with some very generic workflows that you can then customize. Go ahead and move to the next screen. And the nice thing about the ability to customize that is if I've got approvers that need to review and approve these, they don't have to go into the application to approve the purchase order. In this case, I'm routing something to Alicia that needs approval, and I'm routing it to her directly through Outlook. So she can go ahead and open that up and approve it right from Outlook. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Or for those who are using devices, such as an iPhone, we can see a home screen here, and on the right-hand side, I've got 16 different approvals that I need to select and complete. Go ahead and move to the next slide. And I can do that in the upper left-hand corner by approving, rejecting, or delegating that to somebody else. Once that approval has been completed, either through Outlook or through a mobile device, then I can, this is great for SOX auditors and for anybody who's wanting to view the history of this. I've got the posted approval entries workflow, and this will show me everywhere that transaction has been, and so it keeps a great audit trail. And then finally, some of the abilities of the fixed asset, and this is available in other parts of the solution as well. You can see that once we put that rack server into service, we can also include fixed asset pictures, such as the picture of the server here, and other attachments that can document and stay with that asset through the life of the system. All right, move on to the next screen. And then I think the last thing I wanted to cover is the ability for you to use OCR, or optical character recognition solutions, in BC. In this case, there is an invoice that's coming into our inbox that we need to pay. As we can see, once we scan that invoice in, BC will then recognize fields in the system, and it will set that up for payment. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So here's an example of that being recognized. It will allow us the ability to either accept it or make changes to it, but certainly very, very much improved and allowing you to enter the transaction without having to actually touch it and enter every field into the system.
All right. Well, thank you, Teresa. And now we'll jump along to what's new in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. So hopefully you guys are excited to see some of this, the new things that are out and some of the changes that are abreast with this solution. And again, this is really the enterprise level solution. So you'll see, you know, a little bit differences in a number of screenshots here as well. And just a reminder, these slides will be providing out to you for your reference if we went over anything too quickly. So just on this screen right here, it looks like it's a little busy, but in terms of what I'm trying to convey with it is that the Microsoft Dynamics 365 is a moniker, a name that's used across both the ERP, CRM, and even the SMB solution, BC. But within the Microsoft Dynamics 365 stack, there really are ERP related workloads, and there are CRM related workloads referred to as customer engagement, or CE. When it comes to the F&O, and in many instances BC as well, there is a bidirectional integration between these applications, and it's hard to talk about the ERP without the CRM in some of these instances. So what was formerly known as Dynamics AX has gone through some name changes, and with a Dynamics 365 for finance, as you saw previously, that is really a core set of sub-modules within the finance applications of the greater Dynamics AX product. They also have a license around Dynamics 365 for supply chain management. And what's new within that are a number of things we'll highlight, as well as guides, which is a new technology we'll show as well. The third one there on the right-hand side is Dynamics 365 for commerce. This was formerly known as their retail modules, and this includes a number of new SKUs around the retail point of sale, e-commerce, and scale units there, and fraud protection, and a number of others. On the human resources side, this has undergone some changes too. It used to just be a simple submodule within your Dynamics AX. Now it's got its own license and license type, and it includes what was for an interim period of time known as talent, so onboarding, LinkedIn integration, etc. The big kind of purple thing across the side there, across both, called project operations. This is really an end-to-end professional services automation suite that really originates in the full CRM user interface, so managing all your leads, opportunities, quotes, pipeline, work breakdown structures, even your timesheets and professional services execution, scheduling, and the like, with all the back end of the accounting and invoicing being done in F&O, bidirectionally and fully integrated. And then another SKU on the right-hand side there is asset management, which is another SKU that you have additive that had been included in the solution from an acquisition, really to do servicing of equipment within your own manufacturing plant or facilities. Whereas on the left-hand side, you see field service, which is really the CRM module around being able to do those execution of service out in the field in a billable format. And along with that field service, you'll see remote assistant and guides as two additional kind of new solutions available. And we'll get into a few of those other things there. Powerapp Licensing is included in both the CE and F&O kind of licensing set. So Powerapps is, kind of crosses the divide. And the dual write and CDS or data integrator, those elements are important because dual write means that when you go to save like a contact record in your CRM sales module, it would do a lookup for like address validation and other things in your ERP, and to make sure duplicate checking and all that is on before you're able to save it back into both simultaneously. And so that's used for a number of records like accounts, contacts. And then the CDS data integrator is the technology that is using a common database structure that will replicate data based on transformations into the secondary application. So a good example there is quote to order integration. So with that, let's jump on to the next module. And again, feel free to type in any questions as we go, and we'll try and tackle them in line, but we do have a number of slides here, about 20 more just on F&O. So some of the new features that we've seen released in this latest wave of new features from Dynamics 365 F&O is around automation, and vendor payment automation is one of those areas where normally people would go in and do a check run, an ACH run, and they would do international wire run, for instance, and each one needed to be manual filter selections and setting those things up each time you need to go for it. But now we could just set up business rules, and these things will automatically be created and put into place. Like if you can take early payment discounts on something, we could set those business rules and have them generated and have them set up on the calendar for review. And that helps offload some of those otherwise manual tasks. There's also a number of other details here. One is vendor and customer ID and names in the general voucher transactions list. That helps for things like drill down from your financial statements to know what customer vendor items have been attributed to. Also used for things like integrations to other systems like adaptive planning or host analytics or other FP&A tools where you may want those attributes with an integration. Another thing here is the provisional trial balance report with transactional detail on unposted GL transactions. That one is important because you can see not just the posted transactions in your trial balance, which you would normally see. You can also set filters to view unposted transactions as well. So you have a little bit better prediction, especially mid-cycle before you close the books. Go ahead. So this is a picture of that provisional trial balance report. It'll allow you to see, only posted transactions, only pending transactions. So that would be like an invoice that had been received but not posted yet into the GL. And you can, look at posted, pending, or both.
Hey, John, that's super helpful when it comes to determining whether or not you want to accrue anything after you thought you've closed AP.
Yeah, that is right. Okay, another feature, this is one that's near and dear to my heart because this is a solution that Armanino had really designed and built around the ASC 606 and IFRS 16 revenue accounting requirements for multi-element arrangements and revenue deferrals and more complex revenue deferral scenarios than what you saw on the Business Central solution. And this solution is something that had been acquired by Microsoft and released as the standard product in the previous wave. And so this is available to all the users. And so it's something that we see come up quite often in a number of industries. Next slide. Another one that was came into Microsoft's release cycle came from an acquisition from another ISV. This one is around asset leasing. So when you purchase, an asset through a lease, such as like a utility truck or a vehicle, those would be applicable to ASC 842 and IFRS 16 lease accounting support. And so that allows you to say what the fair value of the asset is, the implicit rate, incremental borrowing rate, et cetera, lease terms, depreciations, any liability, the residual value is, et cetera, and it does the calculations and automates that within the context of your ERP solution, so that you don't have to go do that out in Excel and enter in journals at the end of the month. So really, really exciting feature that we see the need for more widely in the market. So a few more just in the finance area here around automatic collection task creation based on business rules. So I mentioned a little bit about how the payment proposals could be automated based on the business rules. The same on the collection tasks. So if company is at 45 days, we're going to automatically set a dunning letter. And we could also set touchless email reminders to customers on things like that. Like, hey, a reminder, this invoice is due in 7 days. Just wanted to, remind you that it's still outstanding. So these things can be, kind of coded in, and then it frees up your folks from, needing to make those more mundane calls and focusing on those higher risk balances that you need to chase down. We've also got some automation. So let me go back to that one just for a moment. So some automation around cash flow forecasting, improvements to invoice automation with three-way match. A good storyline of that is, when you're going through your OCR capture of, documents, and they get loaded into what we call the pending vendor invoice section. Those, if there is a rule set for automation on the three-way match, if the invoice matches the PO, matches the receipt, it becomes touchless and it automatically processes that through. Again, time savings, automation, trying to drive that additional value out of the organization. And so we can, jump on to the next one now. All right, so that was a few of the finance. Now I'm going to be talking a little bit about manufacturing. And manufacturing is something that really sets the F&O product above the GP and BC solutions. And there's always been a number of ways to support manufacturing in finance and operations. Whether that's lean, discrete, or process manufacturing, and in many cases mixed mode, a combination of some of those various manufacturing techniques. This specific feature is a new production floor execution workspace. So think of MES on the shop floor. In low light environments, employees can be wearing their gloves and doing this touch screen based user interaction whenever they're starting jobs and going to lunch or taking breaks, working on multiple jobs at the same time, getting instructions popping up, work instructions or drawings, design documents, ISO documents as they go. And so this is just one user interface. I'll show you another one on the next slide that's also new. Another one is what we call the job card device. And so this job card device has been enhanced in a way that really hits on some of the needs that we see in the industries we serve. We do a lot of high-tech life sciences, like medical device companies, where they need to be able to capture serial level detail with scraps. So if you've got a number of items going through a production process, you want to be able to capture which serial numbers were completed in a process, which ones may have had errors and reasons why, being able to scrap individual components within a batch. And so you can see just a quick user interface of what that looks like and how easy it is. And oftentimes we'll have this hooked up to just a little barcode or wedge scanner to capture those serials as we go. Another exciting feature is around the manufacturing side for using guides. Guides are, where Microsoft's goggles set up for being able to visualize work instructions can just quickly take a look at the QR code that gets generated. You can see on the left-hand side here, upper left, where the guide parameters, we just say, what kind of QR code are we going to do? We set up the parameters of where those are going to be resting. And in this case, it's on a production order. So we're going to be doing an assembly, and it tells us based on this route operation, a QR code would be generated in that workspace, one of those production workspaces, and it'll recognize that and be able to provide this augmented reality instruction in real time to the user. And you can see it has little arrows of where you need to turn, recognizing what he's looking at and providing those cards up in his view. Another exciting thing on the manufacturing side, this one I'm categorizing into planning. After all, it's a master planning enhancement. This is finally released into general availability, and this master planning integration service has solved the problem that is kind of plagued a lot of manufacturers in the past, which is you put in a nightly run and you got 6 to 8 hours of running an MRP process to do single site or multi-site planning, and then you come back and you execute on it, and there's a lot of changes during the day, but then you go back to the next night and you do another change. This planning service now provides near real-time planning functionality, and it integrates to a microservice, which is an Azure scale unit that does this real-time and memory-based calculation. And it allows you to do more simulations if you wanted to have multiple forecast plans. And it also has sort of like the dynamic master plan and AX previously, it has order creation event driven incremental recalculation trigger. So a new order is entered, it dynamically update your MRP in real time. And with this, it serves as a foundation for some of the future stuff that's unannounced but coming regarding advanced planning and scheduling optimization techniques using AI. So this one, I'm going to jump into what's new in human resources. This is an interesting element of how Microsoft has, again, blended their Office suite with their finance and operations suite. This one in particular is about human resources and how many users in an organization today, especially people working from home and during a COVID world, have been using Teams. And so Teams is now becoming a user interface that people are as familiar with as Office or Outlook, and we can incorporate things like PTO requests, sick hours and balances, and the request and approval for that directly from Microsoft Teams and integrated with human resources. Another kind of feature that has been added in the human resources modules is the ability to do employee organization management. So being able to do approvals of new positions, of requesting or changing assignments to new departments, things related to employee promotions and other things. So any workflows that control pay rates, movements, changes, those things can go through workflow. And we have one feature that's coming. It's in preview right now. It'll be out later this month, and that is full integration with the LinkedIn Talent Hub that allows you to do all of your sourcing and applicant tracking with full integration to D365 for human resources. Okay, so project operations is that one big long purple bar that stretches across the CE and F&O, and this solution is really designed to solve the problem of folks who had been going through a CRM-based process to do pipeline management, quotes, pulling together work breakdown structures from an estimating perspective, doing any revisions there, and then ultimately winning the business and now having to go through a project planning, project execution, and scheduling resources, and then doing all of the billing and revenue recognition associated with those things. And this really does have a lot of integration with all the objects in finance and operations, whether you're doing a fixed price project or a time and material project. or even a fixed price straight line project, which is a time-driven, subscription-based service like you might do with managed services. And so all that allows you to have some of the integration there. You see many of the different, kind of elements that are included in this. One of the things that I would just note in this first wave, it does not support material forecast integration yet. So you wouldn't be using this for like doing construction-based or engineering-based projects where you're going to manufacture something. That'll be coming in a subsequent wave. But for professional services, resource bookings, and time and expense, it's really well suited, and the first release is actually pretty exceptional in what they were able to do as a full redesign of their previous PSA solution. So here's a look at the project operations in terms of the resource booking and scheduling. You see you have a nice workbench to see who the resources are. You can search for people who are applicable by skills, do a best fit analysis, and then also booking, overbooking, projecting those things out. And you could view it by week, day, month, and kind of project it out and view it any way you need to. So really sleek user interface here. You can also see that the integration with the solution this is on a quote perspective, doing a profitability analysis. You'd also be able to capture that full profitability analysis as the project is underway, as hours and time have gone through over the course of a project. If you need to re-estimate cost to complete, all that integration is fully supported from this front end, which this is actually, if you can tell, I mean the user interfaces have blurred so much. This is actually the CE side of that project management, and then on the back end is where the actual hours, expense, and time journal, item journals are going to be posted, and then the billing and revenue recognition occur in your F&O ERP. All right, so one more item here. What's new in finance commerce? So this was, again, that retail, previously known as the retail solution. So in terms of the pricing and licensing, a number of things have kind of came into play. One of them is the retail scale unit, and this is for point of sale or e-commerce portal scale outs. For instance, one of these scale out units can support like 65 point of sale units, or 10,000 monthly e-commerce checkouts, for instance. So there's a number of these that are driven for large organizations that need to scale out significantly. You can buy an additional scale unit. And then commerce ratings and recommendations allow you to have like the little next to your e-commerce site. You can see that this has 5 stars, and it has people creating recommendations like you see on Amazon. And then fraud prevention and loss prevention. There's an artificial intelligence solution. This is something that Microsoft had built first for their internal use of their sales websites, and now they've packaged and productized it for their commerce solution, and the loss prevention as well. And then purchase protection. So all 3 of those elements are incremental additions that you get a baseline, and then you can pay for additive as you scale out your transactions. So a little bit more complexity on the licensing. Go ahead. So here's a look at the point of sale, and this is what you would see whether you're a call center employee working from this kind of a user interface, or you have this in store, on premise in a retail establishment. And really easy to see who the individual is from a customer. Maybe you have a phone number, maybe you have a loyalty card number, and you can see historical transactions. You can enter in items, see recommended items, and then you can obviously capture the funds and do all of the normal things that you see from a point of sale, like gift cards and loyalty points. One thing that's new, and this is pretty advanced for what Microsoft had previously, is this modern and responsive, what you see is what you get kind of e-commerce site builder. It's drag drop, allows you to add in all these objects, provide attributes to them, this kind of designer allows you to do a number of things to kind of improve the look and feel of the templates that come out of the box. And they've also added in some additional enhancements around payment processing. So you would be able to use, from whether you're using an e-commerce, the web, or just the rich client call center, you would be able to use the same API for the payment processing across all three channels. Even though they had been previously subsequent technology, they're using a common SDK now. And one of those things that they just provide out of the box now is a PayPal payments connector. And of course, we see a number of other folks using CyberSource and a variety of others as well. But the PayPal one was just newly added. Another thing around the analytics related to your e-commerce store for the online store management, this has advanced capabilities that recently came out around abandoned cart capabilities. So somebody leaves the site and they say, oh, you had these three things in your abandoned your cart. Do you still want them? For a short period of time, we've got a 15% discount or whatever, come back and buy them. So ways to just capture more revenue. Another around experimentation of A/B testing. So based on that, WYSIWYG kind of designer, you can have A/B models for testing interactions with your customers. See if you have, an average, higher average ticket for, one website versus another, whether you have a higher average, capture rate. And so that's one thing that have been added in there. And then omni-channel excellence. This is really around making sure that the full integration of being able to do special orders from a point of sale device that's going to be purchased and drop shipped to a customer, and full integration of the receipt and then fund capture, especially partial processing. So you were to do a special shipment of 20 items, 15 get delivered, and you only want to capture funds from a revenue recognition and a credit card of the 15. Those would automatically be processed, and those remaining 5 can be canceled out in a way that actually reduces the overall burden and cost, the percentage that you have to pay to the credit card provider through optimization there. So let's kind of close it out here. In terms of those are all the things that we had highlighted. There's a ton more, and we're eager to talk to each one of you about individualized ways that some of these new features and others that have been longstanding in the applications may apply to your business, and see if it makes sense to do an upgrade to either D365 BC or F&O, or which one may be right for your organization, and a lot of considerations there. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you guys may have.
John, I did see a question come in. It said, when will the import to APGL be rolling out?
Is that related to?
Is that for BC or F&O?
I'm assuming it was for F&O.
Import to APGL. I'm not sure I understand. I don't see that question.
I think it might be related to BC, and it might be the Excel changes, but that was under BC, and that's currently available. Oh, I know what it is. It's around GP. That was related to GP, and that's available, I believe, in the 2019, but I'll double check exactly when that came out. So if you could note that, Kim, for us to follow up on. I think it's a GP question.
Absolutely. So other questions I see, one was, what are the biggest differences between 365 F&O and BC?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest difference is really just in terms of the size of the application and functional coverage. So when you look at a BC, it has a lot of basic features, and even a lot of time-saving features related to processing in a relatively small business. versus a Dynamics 365 F&O, which is really designed and optimized for more complex businesses. So things that have multiple sites, whether manufacturing and distribution, domestically and or internationally, multiple entities, multiple lines of business, things that just have lend itself to a greater degree of compliance, like FDA validation or other complexities. So really it's not a one size fits all, not like every manufacturer needs F&O, but it's certainly one of those areas where we can help you navigate for your individual company.
And I would add, John, that if you're looking at commerce as well, that makes a big difference. I think it's obviously very well suited to F&O and not as much to BC.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How do I find out which third parties are supported for BC and F&O, assuming it might be on GP at this point?
It's a good question. I'd say the first place you could always look on your own is around Appsource. Appsource is Microsoft's app store for all of the ISVs that have been officially certified on a Microsoft application, and they'll say on there which applications they've been certified for. So many of the GP ISVs, kind of seeing the trend in the market, have uplifted their solutions over to the BC store, if you will, and many of the AX have migrated theirs up to the F&O store as well, but not all of them. So if you run into questions, reaching out to Armanino, we can certainly navigate those for you.
That's and one other comment, John, that's a great place to go to get that information. Two things. Number one, you can reach out to your client manager as well. So if you're an Armanino client, you probably have a client manager that you work with around your solutions, but there are also good reasons to reach out to them to determine if you even need that third-party solution. For instance, one thing I didn't comment on, Macorma is a very common third-party solution that our GB clients use for check printing. If you are on BC, for instance, you don't need that solution anymore. That's built into the BC solution. So it's worth having a conversation for sure.
Great. And then another question I see, it says, if I'm running GP today, can I implement Commerce?
Commerce can be operated as a standalone solution, although it's certainly greatest value is that it has data mastered out of finance and operations. So I wouldn't say Microsoft would tell you that it can run as a standalone, but in practice, the value add is higher when you're working with out of the Dynamics 365 for finance and operations.
Yeah, and the way the licensing works, even though you may not need a 20 user back office license for F&O, the way it's licensed, it may very well be to your best interest, as opposed to buying a new point of sale system, having the full solution of D365 F&O and Commerce. We should run the numbers to make sure that it's not the wrong solution for you. I think it certainly can be a great solution, even if you think you're smaller.
Yeah, and I see a question here from Hassan. Is conversion from BC to D365, or does it require a full implementation, or is there a streamlined conversion process? And yeah, so there is a streamlined conversion process. You are able to take your database on GP in almost all the instances, with some exceptions around ISV complexities, but in almost all instances you can move that entire database with your transactional history forward to Business Central. So there is an automation there, and we've gone through it a number of times with our clients, and I would say that it's pretty efficient. Any other questions out there? Looks like we've got about a minute left.
I did see a question. I just want to confirm we will be sending out the slides and the recording for this webinar as well, as a couple have asked that. Great. Well, I think we're at 11, so I think we've answered all the questions, and would like to thank everybody for attending this morning. John, Teresa, thank you for sharing your information, and we hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks again, Kim and John.
All right, goodbye.